Hello, hello. Welcome to this episode of the Rich Revolutionaries podcast. Today I have on another very special guest. We have Ashley Phillips, and Ashley is an intuitive. She does energy work, works with neuroscience, subconscious reprogramming, all of that good stuff. And I'm going to give the floor to you, Ashley, to introduce yourself properly, what you do in the world, your magic, who you work with.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you for having me here. I am so excited to be on your podcast today and excited to, meet you and work with you. So, hi everyone. Again, my name's Ashley, and I actually am the CEO and founder of the Subconscious CEO. I work with neuroscience, intuition, energy work, and really what I love doing and what I'm passionate about is building a community of women and men. I never, want to push the men away, but a lot of my clients are women. And I love helping women build something that they're proud of using intuition and energy work and not leaving anything else like out of the table. So I would just say, like, yeah, one of my passions is most of it is business. I get a lot of people who are building a business who want to scale, but using intuition. And that's really just what my work is all about.
Mm-hmm. Hmm, I love it. Something that you might not know about me is that I went to business school and it took me like 6 or 7 years to like unprogram everything I learned in business school to actually launch my own business. And I'm sure that your client work is filled with people who are like, oh, I want to do this, but then like these like scarcity, urgency tactics are feeling really icky sticky in my body. So like, what are some of the limiting beliefs and patterns that you see people come into your field of work with, and what's kind of the the mechanism and the outcome of working together?
Yeah, yeah, I love that. Well, something that you might not know about me is I was in retail for over 12 years and I was a manager. So I wasn't
Okay.
just an associate, nothing against the associates, but I was like, one of the top dogs in the store. So I actually knew firsthand what it's like to sell. And I've always been, I would say, really good at selling, but I also was good at like the operational thing. So I was a good balance of both. So I totally get what you mean by like the limiting programmings that are out there when it comes to business. And I actually started before my business. And when I quit retail, I started a social media management business. So I launched social media business. I sold digital products around that, and I was really successful. It just didn't feel aligned and almost like icky, like you said. It's just like it
Mm.
didn't. I was like, I'm selling product, and it just didn't make sense. So obviously that got me into my healing business, and this feels so much more fulfilling and aligned. And I would say, I would say the number one belief that clients come to me with is almost this I mean, I guess there's a couple, but I would say the number one that's coming right now is feeling afraid to be seen for who they truly are. And that's just because the world shapes you from a young age. Even when I was young, like people would be like, you're being too loud, like you don't need to share what you're thinking, all those things. And I find that so common, which then stems into like, I'm not good enough, I'm not capable, can I be a leader? And so, it just obviously it stems from all that. But I would say, yeah, like the biggest one is feeling afraid to be seen for who they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I remember that before I launched my own business, I was just afraid to be perceived in general. Like I'd always kind of like shy into the background and be more of the fly on the wall observer and not speak unless spoken to. And
Mm-hmm.
I love that you're bringing this forward because right now I'm the main work that I do with my people also is like overcoming that fear of perception of just being what I like to call like audacious and allowing people to judge you, allowing
Mm-hmm.
people to misunderstand you, and clearing those pathways that create like a collapse or like a hyper arousal that makes us want to either just like hide from being seen altogether or prove our worth through
Mm-hmm.
different ways of showing up that are quote unquote acceptable to the mainstream audience. And I would say very confidently that the people that I work with aren't here to sell to the mainstream audience. I work in a
Mm-hmm.
paradigm of what I call like new earth business. And so really what that boils down to is building relationships on a foundation of genuine connection and soul resonance. And that becomes the foundation of a business rather than what do I need to say? What do I need to do to get them to buy? Well, speak your truth, show up authentically. And if there is a connection there, then of course you're going to want to explore that and go deeper into each other's worlds. And right now I have a free space open that's called Spotlight Sessions, and we come into a sacred theater play to allow people to experience that shift of being like, oh, I'm so scared, and actually allowing the body to really feel it, to then exaggerating the audacious character that lives within us. Because it's really a matter of everything all at once, and what are you choosing to anchor into? And so, what are some of the ways that you guide your clients to anchor into that um, expression or safety, or however you want to frame it, with being seen?
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And I love the way, I just want to add too, because I love the way you put that around like building relationships as the foundation. I've never really heard it that way before, but I feel like that's a lot of what I do. And, everyone says like I'm so good with my words. And I'm like, but it's just so easy because I'm not trying to say anything different. I'm just
Mhm.
being myself. And if someone resonates with myself and my energy and my words, then perfect. Like we're a match. Like we're meant to, work together or be together, whatever that is. So I think it's really powerful too, because even a lot of my clients now that are healers, I'm like, okay, I'm getting intuitively, you need to go out and network. And I'm like, not like business networking, but like maybe you go to a yoga studio, connect with someone. Maybe is there a spiritual
Mhm.
class or go to the park or something because and
Mhm.
you did just like you said, you don't have to say anything different. You don't need to know what to say. You just be yourself. And then that
Yeah.
opens the door for everything else. So I absolutely love the way you framed that. I just had to add that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I would say one of I mean, there's a lot that I do with clients, but one of the most powerful things I do is I work with, and I like to say the quantum field because people know what it is, but I go in, I adjust timelines. So I can pull,
Mm.
different types of energy healings that I do, and I pull the beliefs out of their field energetically. But something that a lot I've seen in the spiritual world that people miss out on is like they do maybe a lot of the energy work, the meditations, but things aren't moving. But because we're like 50% energetic and 50% physical, you need to take the physical action. So, something I like to do is I work with a lot of my clients on self love and self image.
Mhm.
And unconditional self love. So, really,
Mhm.
self love is putting yourself first in every situation. Self image is seeing who you are authentically for like down to the core. And then
Mhm.
unconditional self love is seeing the balance of, the negative and the positives. So when it comes to, getting that number higher, because I like test percentages, I'm trying to like make this short and sweet, but I'm like, but there's
Take
this
up
and
as
this.
much space as you want.
Okay. So yeah, but so I test percentages on where they're at. And one that moves the mark the most is giving them a physical action to take. So by putting
Mhm.
yourself first in every situation, that's going to be the physical action that's going to move the mark on top of the energy work. Maybe complimenting yourself or receiving compliments will help your self image because a lot of us don't like to like as healers and just light workers and all that don't like to take up space and or if we receive a compliment we're like oh thanks but this or thanks and you too or something like that.
Mhm.
So another physical action is like receiving the compliment and just saying thank you
Mhm.
and embodying that. So
Yeah.
that's a little bit short and sweet about what I do. So I combine the energy work with the physical actions because that's really what I see moves the mark the most.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. That action piece is so like nothing happens unless something different happens, right? And
Right.
I also came from more of like the healing space. I used to market myself as a Reiki master practitioner and a yoga teacher. And, I think I have like 10 certifications under my belt at this point, as I was just in that loop of like more and more and more and more for a
Yeah.
while and trying to compensate for a feeling of inadequacy that I had rather
Hmm.
than targeting that directly. And I was noticing that I was attracting a lot of clients that were looking for that quick fix of like the next thing, the next thing, the next thing, rather
Mm.
than like actually having the say receptivity or the capacity or the mental responsibility, I guess, to actually want to affect radical change through radical action that is going to be really uncomfortable. And I've started pairing that too with like what I was talking about before in the spotlight sessions of the sacred theater that's fun and playful and it's this big energy shift as well. Is okay at the end of it, like what is your next one action step so that we can keep moving this forward? It's like integration is action rather than this concept of integration as rest. And we want to be resting too, but it's knowing like how to keep that energy moving forward, how to keep stoking that fire. I want to know when was this like a breakthrough moment for you, the line in the sand of when you went from being like the manager, sales associate to being like, actually, I'm gonna launch my own social media business. What do you remember a moment there?
Yeah, I mean, I would say okay, so there was two massive ones. So I worked for Victoria's Secret for most of my
Okay.
retail career, and then I transferred to Target, and I was a manager there for about 7 months. And the reason I transferred is because I was like looking for more work-life balance, more money, all the things, whatever, that I
Hmm.
thought this job was going to get me. Okay, so just like
Hmm.
looking for that external validation, and then I actually got fired for
Hmm.
literally the craziest thing. Like I probably should have sued for it, but it was so stupid. I broke a rule that I didn't even know was a rule. And I'm not like I follow even the rules of the road to a T. I still do it to this day. And so I got let go and then I started reading the book The Magic. And that started this journey of oh, I love manifestation. I love all that. So I started getting into that for about 2 years, investing in programs, courses. I didn't do any certifications yet because I was just like wanting to learn all the things. I didn't
Hmm.
at that point know I was going to be a healer. But then my grandma passed away and we were in the hospital room with her and I saw her soul leave her body. And
Hmm.
that was the turning point for me. I was like, did anyone else see this? Am I the only one? Like, and I told everyone about it, so that was the moment for me where I'm like, oh, this work is real. And then ever since then, it snowballed into getting, certifications, learning how to do this work, what this looks like, and launching this. So yeah, I would say that those were the two pivotal points for me in this journey.
Hmm. Yeah, I can really imagine that being such a potent like reality shifting experience to actually witness that like moving over into the other side and in hearing that I'm curious to know more about the spiritual aspect of the work that you do. Um, Let me find my question here. Is there anything that's jumping out to you?
I mean, I would say something that's coming to me is that, going when I saw, the spirit, I was like, oh, like I see dead people. Like that was like the first thing. Cause I've been a
Hmm.
very logical person. Like growing up, I maybe saw my one grandma who passed away when I was in kindergarten once, like coming up through my closet. And like that
Hmm.
was it. I wasn't someone who like actively connected with spirit and all that. So it's not like a huge part of my journey, like that piece of it. Like I know how to connect to those, but I
Hmm.
know there are a lot of psychics out there that just connect to those who have crossed over and all that, but that's not really a part of my journey. That was
Okay.
just a stepping stone for me to see that
Okay.
energy work is real. This is just a different frequency. You saw that because you weren't listening, for the last couple years. So like it's time to really ramp up what you're meant to do and really open the doors for you. So I think that that's kind of what's coming up for me. I don't know if that's kind of the question you were going to ask or similar along that, but yeah, that's what I have.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Why I was like, wait, I'm wanting to explore this, but it doesn't feel like the exact right direction to take this in. To give you a little bit of background about me, like My like psychic sense is the strongest is clairsentience, and so I feel dead people if you want to say it that way.
Yeah. Hmm.
And both of my parents experienced tragic loss in their family before I was born. My mom's dad passed in front of her when she was 12 years old, and
Oh.
my father lost a child at my brother would have been 7 at the time. And so there was a lot of like unprocessed grief in my household and keeping like those spirits close by. And so that was always something that I tuned into and
Mm,
similarly didn't have any guidance around. And so um, I found ways to intuitively bring forward the wisdom that I needed to kind of create boundaries around the
mm.
spiritual realm because it was really overwhelming as a child to be navigating like being really sensitive to people's emotions and being really sensitive to spirit in that way. And ooh, I found a thread. When people come into your world, and I'm gathering that it's people who are starting in business, or are you
Yep.
working with people who have established businesses as well?
Well, I would say it's actually interesting because when I first started my business and over the last couple of years, it's been people who are brand new to this world, but know they have like spirit, they have psychic senses. They're meant to be a healer, but they just don't know where to start. And recently,
Hmm.
over probably the last 6, 7 months, I'm getting healers who are ready to either make more money, get more clients, get more in alignment with what they're meant to do. So it's been a balance of both, but majority has been brand new, just starting.
Hmm. Okay. So on either end of the like positioning spectrum, if you want to say it in that way, I know that boundaries is like a massive conversation to move things forward in people's businesses and their opening to their spiritual gifts too. And so what are some of the like boundary energy leaks that you see people come in with, and how do you address those to allow for like the fluidity and focus to move forward with what they're building.
Yeah, so that's a great question. I mean, I would say one of the biggest things before anyone works with me, I do intuitively test if I'm the best person to help them. Like if I'm meant,
Ooh.
I ask all these questions, and like that's why I have a lot
Mm-hmm.
of application processes, when it comes to my
Mm-hmm.
sessions and all that. Like there's some healings that people can just get, but if I'm meant to help them on a longer scale, I do intuitively test. I'm like, am I the best person? Are they going to get
Mm-hmm.
out what they want? All the things. And then as far as that, I honestly take it like step by step and just test every single time I work with them. Like, what do they need to know? What, in majority of it's like creating, there's a lot of energy work starting at the beginning working with people because there's so much limiting programmings and there's so much like heavy energy around their bodies, their physical body,
Mm-hmm.
their energetic body. So I think just like starting there and working through that and working its way up. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, like a global perspective. I want to get a lot more specific on what are some of those like limiting beliefs, or like the density that people hold. Like what's the gunk that's floating around in the collective that you work with? So somebody that would be listening to this and is curious, like, is this for me, would be able to see themselves inside of what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I would say the first thing, if you are interested in energy work or feel like you can, you're really empathetic. Empathetic comes up a lot. Someone's like,
Mhm.
I'm really empathetic. And I'm like, okay, well, yeah, that makes sense because you're meant to be a healer. So if someone's listening and you have these signs, I think the first thing is like, yes, you are psychic. Yes, you are
Mhm.
intuitive. Every single person that has come across my table, you know, has intuitive abilities. And from my understanding is we all do. It's just whether or
Mhm.
not our soul chose to open it up in this lifetime or
Mhm.
maybe it'll be in another lifetime. Whatever the beliefs are there, but majority of them it's opening up the psychic gifts. And like if you're feeling called to this work, I 100% guarantee you're ready to open up your gifts and develop them on a larger scale to start your journey, whether it be some of the clients that do come through just need my help on, clearing the limiting beliefs or the heavy energy around them. And then they go on and be the best versions of themselves to help others, not necessarily launch a business, but majority of my clients don't even come to me and like, hey, I want to launch a business. It's like, hey, I'm actually having trouble in my relationship thing. Like there's, multiple patterns or trouble with money, right? I can never hold enough money. It starts there. And then, 6 months later, they're a healer. They launch a business. You know what I mean? So yeah, is that specific?
We're getting there. I'll keep
Yeah.
prompting you.
Yeah, yeah. Keep going. I'm ready.
Yeah. Yeah, I found that hey, there's something that I want to work on personally to like, okay, like I have these gifts that I want to explore and oh, okay, maybe I'm like meant to be healing other people and oh, okay, maybe like let's make this a business and that seems to be an evolution that I see a lot of. Like it's been my path for sure. And some of the things that specific for me that were kind of let's say like limitations that were self-imposed or internalized were like I didn't trust myself. I didn't trust myself
Mm,
to be accountable to creating what I said I wanted. I didn't trust myself to be able to speak the truth of what I was perceiving because like I I really am able to pick up on everything from like at the core of your being to like way, 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 way out to the edges of the universe. And it's that's a lot. That's a lot to perceive. And so it was something that overwhelmed me at first and things like um I don't know, like abuse from someone's childhood would come through and be like, ooh, like how do I talk about this? Or something in terms of more like a physical um ailment like I had a lot of women come to me with infertility issues and
mm,
I would
mhm,
see all of the threads but then didn't necessarily have the clear communication pathway
mm,
and a a groundedness within my own body to be able to relay this information in a way that would be supportive to the other person. And so some of those limitations that were imposed was like my truth is too much or like my sensitivity is a burden or people get like angry at me when I share what I can perceive. And so clearing those things has allowed me to um well step beyond just like the healing identity. For me, I've moved into okay, like I want to apply what I've learned to building a different framework for business because like I said, there's a lot of those next level of programs in the social cultural context like the urgency that's placed in like a high pressure close or the scarcity that's manufactured to get people to buy or manufacturing desires that are implanted into people's consciousness through like repeated subconscious programming and marketing and advertising fields. And it's like, well, what reality are we trying to co-create here? Is it the one
mm,
that is the same that has always existed on, in modern history of like, okay, we have a little nuclear family, we have our home, and we live in isolation from each other and we spend all this time on our laptops and we're, accumulating personal wealth and then give that to our kids and it kind of just like perpetuates this same cycle of like, okay, well, that's not the reality that I want to create. And so how can I build my business differently and build my relationships differently in a way that is going to co-create the vision that I have for a future of being more communally rooted in relationship with the land and bringing about a sense of like land sovereignty and um, being a lot more connected with the way that we're feeding ourselves through food systems and just the birthing industry too. So kind of like every level of society, I'm very attuned to like, okay, how have things become how they are and like what are the shifts that we need to make in order to co-create a different outcome. And that's a big mission to hold. And so I've kind of talked myself around what my experience was. So I want to give the floor back to you to share, like, maybe that prompted some more of the specific things that people come to you with.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I would say a lot similarities between like both of us. Like we just want it to be different than the way that, we went through, wanting it to be easier and know that there is another way. Like you don't have to live not necessarily in the reality you are now, but if you're longing for that different way, there is another way for you. And something I wanted to mention too, because I would say this was also a pivotal part of my story. By age 22, I bought a house, I had a baby, I had a fiance, I bought a
Wow.
car, I got promoted in my job, and I was like, this is great. I love life. And then there was a moment, I remember I was going out with one of my friends, and I was like, wait, I am so unfulfilled. And so like I bring that up a lot in my journey because it's not because it's almost like the society now makes it seem not like bad, but almost like a negative connotation of like you wanting more. Like maybe it's more
Mhm.
money, more impact. Like you don't want to do the normal things. You don't want to work a 9 to 5. You want to work a couple
Mhm.
hours a week, whatever it is. And it's like, so that's the way I went. I went the other route, right? I worked a lot. I built all that up, but like it's not a bad thing if you want more than what you have now. And that's something I
Mhm.
see a lot of too. It's like, well, I
Yeah.
want more. I want to do more. I want to help people. I want to heal the wounds that I have. There are some people who come to me too with infertility. Like I don't leave anything on the table here. So it's like, okay, how can we get you where you're at to where you want to be? And what's that going to look like for you?
Mhm. Yeah. A big part of the work that I do is like I say like leverage your too much for magnetic leadership, and that like desire that exists within all of us, I believe is this like guiding force for our soul mission to be delivered. And of course, then there's like the programming on top of it of like, oh, it's like bad to have like big desires where it can make the people around you feel like they're not living up to your standards, like they're not enough, and it like presses on that worthiness wound. But when we're actually taking ownership for our own desires and like inhabiting them, like allowing them to exist in our body and like magnetize those um outcomes that we're desiring, then it's like we're not actually responsible for other people. So it comes back to what you were saying at the beginning of like take those like selfish steps for yourself. And like in that, it actually is, I like to operate in this model of reciprocity where you're doing things like yes for yourself, that's one piece of it, but if we're looking at like circular energetics, it's also what's best for yourself is going to be best for the community, is going to be best for the
Mhm.
collective versus this like old transactional dynamic of like, okay, what's in it for me? It's like, yes, selfish, but selfish in a context of reciprocity. And where do I want to go with this? Hmm.
I did want to add, it's funny that you said that because I was just thinking, so you were probably picking up on my energy, but like you're essentially, if someone's listening to this right now, if you are feeling pulled towards this, you're doing the world a disservice by not sharing your gifts, by not stepping into your power. Because if I didn't step into this, I wouldn't have helped hundreds of thousands of women heal, change their life, build a business, stop smoking. A client recently was like, Ashley, guess what? Like, we've been working together for 7 months. She launched her business, but she stopped smoking cigarettes after years and years of smoking. So
Mhm.
that's random, but it's like you're doing yourself and the generations behind you and the world in front of you a disservice by not stepping into this power. So just like even get rid of that limiting belief of like it's selfish because it's actually selfish if you don't do it. So we can
Oh,
flip the
yeah.
script on that one.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It is. I think like early on in our journeys, we can be like, oh, like, what is this person gonna think? What's that person gonna think? Like our family, our friends, whatever. But I'm personally someone who's gone through many rebirths where every
Mm.
like few years I kind of reinvent my entire identity and community and surroundings and like job and likes and dislikes. And like every time everyone around me is like, are you crazy? Like you can't do that. I'm like, well, maybe you can't, but I can. And
100%. Yes.
right. Um, and at some point, like I do want to anchor into more of like, okay, we're doing this together community. And the way that I've found that like I can be me and you can be you and we can like flourish together is moving from this like path of okay, I have to do this, like the pushing, the like optimizing path to like this is something that I'm devoted to. And I can be in devotion alongside other people that are in devotion as well. And it's this shift from like that force energy to this like alignment and flow energy. And I would love to hear like some examples in your world. Like you gave a few with like the smoking and um launching business, but what is some other like tangible examples of what happens when people are making that shift from like pushing to more of a alignment and flow?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I would say it can be anything from like losing the weight you want have been trying to call in, like getting into that ideal body weight because I've been trained in reading the body, and if you're someone who wants to lose weight the normal way, right? Not using the shots or the GLP ones, whatever it's called. I mean, no hate to that.
Hmm.
You do you, boo. But it's more so, intuitively looking in, your body does want to be a ideal weight that you'll feel your best, you won't be tired, all the things. So just getting to that weight, will help you step into the identity that you want to, or, working through. And, for example, one of my clients recently, a couple weeks ago, we did a healing on her and then she manifested $5,000. Now, that doesn't happen a lot, but like when you are ready for the next step, the
Hmm.
universe and higher self source, all the things will give you the things you're desiring just by taking the physical action, just by investing in yourself. And I think that's like a big topic recently is like, at the beginning of my business, a lot of people were like, oh, I don't have money to invest in all that. And that was obviously my wound, right? I worked through that. I shifted that. We did some healing on that, feeling like I'm worthy of receiving that.
Hmm.
And now it's different. Now the conversation is it's obviously on a bigger scale, but like you have to invest in yourself to become the best version of you. And it doesn't always mean money. It means changing your
Hmm.
routines, changing your health, doing energy healing, subconscious reprogramming. Maybe it's going and learning more about topics you didn't know about. So, did I get sidetracked? Did that answer your question?
I don't remember what the question is, but I'm with you.
Yeah, yeah. I'm like, wait, did I get sidetracked? But I do think like this is probably a really good topic because there's some people out there where like, oh, there was times in my journey, even my client's journey, there was like, I don't have enough money to invest in something. Or like say you only have $200 in your bank account, the program's 150, but you intuitively know that if you invest in this, you are going to get an ROI like immediately.
Hmm.
Just like the client, she did a healing a couple days later, $5,000 because that's what she needed to do. And if you don't change what you're doing, it doesn't matter. You're going to stay in the same cycle. And that is a neuroscience fact. There are thousands of studies on it. The second you start doing something different, you are forming a new neural pathway in your brain, which then comes and co creates in your reality. And some people I feel like just make it so hard. I'm like, just it is like, I'm not saying like, hey, rainbows and butterflies. Like, healing is aggressive, especially when you keep growing. Like, I'm not going to sit here
Hmm.
and tell you that my life is perfect. I do go through a lot to level up, but that is the sacrifice I'm making because I want to become someone who makes a huge impact in the world and raises the consciousness of the earth.
Yes.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's the mission, right?
Yeah.
And I love, like, at first when I, made this commitment to be, a light worker, healer, entrepreneur, like whatever title we want to put on it,
Mhm.
I was kind of like white knuckle grip, like, oh my God, I'm doing this. And I still get
Mhm.
to those points sometimes. But now it's like, oh my God, I'm doing this. And
Mhm.
you get to make that switch of like actually falling in love with it and being like a little like existential kinky about it of like
Yeah.
I love meeting new edges. And I'm curious like what's an edge that you've met recently like as a mother and business owner?
Yeah, that's a great question because I wanted to bring this up earlier and then I forgot. So it just came back. I would say one of the things is stability.
Mm,
Stability in my life, in my whether it be cash flow, clients, health, like I just want to create stability. And,
mhm,
someone like I have ADHD and I know that's like a thing right now. So I'm like, I do want to, help more people with this too, like work with the brain on that. But it's more so just finding consistency and feeling stable. Like I come from someone
Mhm.
whose mom worked for 34 years every day. She was never home. Like it was one of those things where like you have to work hard to get these
Mhm.
things. And so then
Mhm.
I worked hard physically, but to get these things, but then obviously I hit a brick wall because I'm like, wait, I'm not fulfilled. So you have to bring the energetic. And it's just one of those things where I actually think I just lost my train of thought. Oh, stability. So it's just like finding that stability and where you feel comfortable. And you talked about something earlier. I was like, oh, where you feel fulfilled, right? Because there are times where I do work a little bit longer and harder, but it's fulfilling. It's not for
Mhm.
someone else, essentially. It's like for that fulfillment in me. And I don't get burnt out. You know what I mean? I know
Mhm.
my limits and I think it's
Mhm.
important. So, yeah, one of the biggest things that I worked through probably I would say like 1 or 2 months ago was like the feeling of stability and consistency. And the second I tapped into that, I was like, this is good. We love it. And then things just started growing very rapidly. So I think I'm
Mhm.
like, I can't believe it took me so long to get to this place of like, I want to feel stable. Like I feel like that's so basic. And I'm like, why didn't I get this years ago? But
Yeah.
I also think too, like some of these things that come up now, I wasn't ready for a couple years ago, right? Like when
Mhm.
I first started, I mean, maybe stability should be a baseline, but it wasn't for me. I'm like, I love the chaos. I love going everywhere. So yeah, that's what I that's what I have for that.
Yeah, yeah, I'm definitely riding that edge right now too. I've moved like probably like 15 times this year,
Oh
and
my
it's just
gosh.
been so, yeah, so chaotic. Like I really want like a home nest. So what are the different actions that I need to do in order to make that happen and like take radical responsibility for creating that stability? And then when I have this, like for me the pattern that comes up, it's like, oh my God, like everything's so like the same every day, like Groundhog Day. Like I gotta do something crazy um to create that like excitement, novelty, and getting like repatterning a relationship to like the consistency and the stability so that I can actually hold it. And, a little bit more about me. My listeners will know this. Like I had a history of addiction. And so I was like always chasing those highs and always creating this like chaos in my life. So in one sense, it creates like I have a big capacity for chaos, which is great
Mhm.
because I have a big capacity for change on a global scale. And like I know that in order to anchor any new norm, in order to evolve the consciousness of the planet, we do have to be able to capacitate the chaos that comes with that like crumbling of old ways of being, and on the flip side also be able to capacitate the stability, the consistency, the like quote unquote boring redundancy of doing the day-to-day like repetitive tasks that are going to create that shift. And so it's a dance between both of them, and I love that
Yeah.
you brought that forward as well. Um, I'm curious to hear. I know you talked about doing like kind of one-to-one sessions and you talked about like longer term journeys. What is the structure of your offer suite that you're working inside of right now?
Yeah, so that is a great question. Well, it's actually really funny. So I offer, we start with one-to-one sessions. Someone can come in and do like a 30-minute or 45, and then after that they can decide if they want to do more like a longer term because I think something with me is it wasn't an overnight thing, right? So it's like I don't want people that come in my world think it's like a quick fix, an overnight thing that this is just going to happen in one session. So I give that space of like, okay, so I have like a 3 month mentorship and then a 6 month. Now I have been working more on as more of the clients that are coming in now are asking me more on like, how do you do this? How do you do that? What does this look like? What is that? So now I'm building something a little bit larger on like a group aspect, but
Mhm.
you know, I do have, so I have my one-on-one sessions, but I launched a intuition program. So learning the science of intuition and developing all your clairs, right? Like all your abilities, because yes, we can tap into like our strongest one, but what really makes the work that I do different is I can use over 10 forms of intuition at once. Like I use all my clairs, I double check with different, fields and everything. So I have that, but I think now as I'm building this new longer term container, it's going to make more of an impact. And I probably should have done it like forever ago, but I was like, I love one-on-one sessions. I'm just like in
Mhm.
that phase. And so I'm like, okay, well, if I want to, reach more people, I need to tackle more people at once, if that makes sense. So did that
Mhm.
answer your question?
Yeah, it
I feel
did.
like I always have like squirrel, going off.
I love that. I think that's the gift of like if we want to label it as ADHD. I like to say that we're multidimensional, nonlinear women and we get to
Yeah.
like weave stories together in more of like a cyclical storytelling, which is how they traditionally would have been anyways. So that's a limitation that I am at clearing around here, and you're always welcome to go on tangents.
Yes.
Um,
Okay, great. Yeah.
Something I do want to loop back around to is you've mentioned a couple of times this like checking that you do with different intuitive senses, and I want to dive a little bit deeper into exploring like what that process is for you. Like, what do you mean exactly by that?
By checking. Yeah. It's so funny because I feel like it's such like a language that I use every day, like even with my family, my friends. I'm like, yeah, let me just intuitively check that. It's just so natural. So, yeah,
Hmm.
really what I mean by that is so intuition is scientific, right? Science, you can
Hmm.
read a science book about intuition. Yeah, sometimes they'll cap it. There are percentages where they'll cap it and be like, this is only so much because they technically don't want us to know that we are these intuitive people. But I would say the way I teach it is everything in the universe is made up of light. Okay. Light turns into matter. Everything has a consciousness. The book, the person, the towel, everything, the desk, whatever, all has matter. And really, when it comes to your abilities, abilities, intuitive abilities, clairs, whatever you want to name it, you're just reading and translating that light. But
Hmm.
and that's it. And it sounds like you know, learning it this way made it click for me. Like, oh, okay,
Hmm.
that's why I saw that spirit that one time because my third eye was open really for that moment. My third eye was like, okay, she needs to
Hmm.
see this. And just like you said too, because I wanted to add earlier how you always felt people's emotions and everything. Like I could literally walk into work and be like, hey, what's going on with you? Like my associate. And they're like, how do you know what's
Yeah.
going on? Like I'm smiling. And I'm like, in looking back, I'm like, I was literally reading her energy, like their
Yeah.
energy all the time. I could walk in a room, I could read a room like the second, and I didn't know I was doing it. So, and I think this is really common for people out there that are,
Yeah.
yearning to develop these abilities is this that happens and you're just reading and translating the light and just not from your visual eye. And then
Hmm.
when it comes to intuitively checking, like I said, I use over 10 different forms of intuition. I can read the body, I can go up to the Akashic records, I can use all my clairs at once. And I also use a percentage system. So on a level of 1 to 100, 1 being the lowest, 100 being the highest. And that's how I test. So you know how I would say like people train their clairs with like yeses and nos?
Hmm.
So I start with that and then I go into percentages. So the
Hmm.
percentages is like anything below an 80% is a no, anything above an 80% is a yes. And
Hmm.
that is how I'm literally guided through my life. I intuitively look in, I connect to the field that I'm trying to work with. Like I usually connect to my higher self or source,
Hmm.
God, universe, whatever you want to call it, whatever resonates. Pulling in different fields and checking like I make business decisions. I intuitively check before I work with a client, before I buy something, before I invest in something, before I even create an offer. I'm like, okay, I will be happy in 6 months that I launch this. What percentage do that
Hmm.
comes through? And I have like a filter system. So I would say that's the short and sweet version, but I think like my goal is to help everyone understand that like you don't have to go through life second guessing or asking for advice from other people on decisions you have to make because if I asked all my family my whole life, I would still be not I would I'll tell you where I would be not right here on this podcast. So I think
Yeah.
it's almost like the basic version is like learning how to take your power back and activate those abilities and do whatever you want with them, right? Like make
Mhm.
sure you're being guided by your higher self, not your human self. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. That's it. That is it.
That's it.
Yeah.
Mic drop.
Yeah. Well, is there any threads that have been like left open loops that you want to dive deeper into or explore before we start to wrap up?
No, I mean, I would just say, like, just in general, everyone talks about like you can have the power to create your own reality. And that's just like, that is a very like cliche version of it, I would say. But like coming from someone who went from working full time, not even, seeing dead people or working with energy my whole life to launching a business, helping others read energy, it almost shows you that anything is possible because normal people are like, oh, I have to, see dead people when I'm younger or do all these things, right? You don't have to. You can be someone who is in cybersecurity right now, and in 3 years, you could be a totally different person if that's what you're desiring. So I know we talked about that a little bit earlier, but I think it's just so important for, your listeners and, people who are out there listening to this that like, I'm serious when I say you have this option to create the reality of what you want and then just start taking the physical action. And it doesn't have to be a million actions a day. Like you could just take one action differently and it's going
Yeah.
to start rewiring your brain. It's going to start showing the universe that you are so serious about stepping into this new version of you.
Yeah. There's two things I want to expand on with that. One is a thing that used to get in my mind a lot, was that I come from this like tiny rural farming town in the middle of nowhere, Eastern Canada. So I couldn't possibly like do something big on like the level of like social cultural change, but like that's not true.
Mm-hmm.
And I know for a lot of people, like socioeconomic background is going to be like a limitation. And it's like, it's only true if you believe it's true.
Mm-hmm.
And that small action that we take to start to open up the field of possibility for different outcomes in our life can be something like simple, like one that I have experimented with a few different times is like brushing your teeth with the your non-dominant hand, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to give you a different perspective subconsciously. And our subconscious is what actually directs like 95% of our behaviors. And so that's the level that we want to be anchoring into rather than just having the thoughts of like, oh, I'm not fulfilled. Oh, this is what I have to do to be successful. Oh, I can't do it because of this. Like all of this like thought chatter is just kind of like runoff garbage. And so getting down to that layer of the body of the subconscious of those like actions that are creating new pathways is how things are actually going to change. And with that, I want to open the floor for you to invite the listeners to anything that you're inviting people into, any like workshops, master classes, open calls, or programs that you are launching in the near future.
Oh yeah, thank you. I love that. Okay, yeah. So I would say if there's anything, if you were interested in getting into my world, I'd highly recommend listening to my podcast. I just rebrand it because naturally we have to rebrand ourselves. It's called the Subconscious Series. And then also I host every Sunday, I host weekly webinars for free on different topics. We build community. There's a lot of people that show up, can ask questions. It's honestly just to share about what's kind of going on in the world, different topics that I know about, what intuitively, the direction that we need to go or want to go if you want to, change your life. So yeah, that's exactly what I'd invite you guys to get into my world and in my orbit. So thank you so much for letting me
Mhm.
share that.
Of course, and I'll have all that linked in the show notes below. And as a closing remark, I want to invite you to vision cast with me. There's a few different ways we can frame it. Sometimes I like to say the ancient future that you are dreaming into reality, or we can say the more beautiful and true future that we know is possible. Like, what does that look like on a tangible level for you?
Yeah, for me in general,
Yeah, or for the collective, like wherever. Let's use our collective um like
filter. Yeah.
attention to bring.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would say like, I think just like getting to a space of really, and I don't want to say like loving one another because that might be extra, but I think it's just
I don't
seeing
think
that. No, okay, well, maybe, okay, let's love one another, okay, you guys. But it's more so trying to get to this space of like emotional mastery and seeing the good and bad of everything. Because I think a lot of right now with the chaos that's going on everywhere, it's more lean towards one side than the other. So how do you
Mhm.
find the balance in both and not really pick a
Mhm.
side? Like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you to pick a side, but also a lot of it is noise. It's an agenda to get you away from creating this life that we've talked about
Yeah.
throughout this podcast, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's like, just, I think the message that I have here is like, just see the good and bad in everything and just keep going to do, what you want to do.
Yes. Mic drop.
Now we can drop the mic.
Yeah, and if I can say it, like that is my mission too. It's I say it in the framework of like anchoring the frequency of unconditional love, right? It's like we
Yeah.
can see everything that's going on and choose not to be an emotional reactivity to it. And it's a practice, right? We're not going to get
Yeah.
it perfect. There's going to be triggers that come up, and those triggers are our guiding posts for our evolution.
Yeah. I love it.
Well, thank you so much for being here, for being you, the work that you do in the world, and for sharing your wisdom and presence on the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Mhm. And for everybody listening, if anything was sparked, a question, an insight, a inquiry to go further, please reach out to either myself or Ashley. Best place for me is Instagram DMs. It'll be linked below. And for you, where would that be?
I would say you can email me info at itsashleyphillips.com. That'd probably be the best place. But I'm also on threads at the subconscious CEO.
Beautiful. We'll have that linked for the listeners as well. And
Thank
thank you
you.
again.